Today is Tuesday, February 10th, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Geopolitical Updates from AGI Era. Europe stands at a pivotal juncture, grappling with its role on the global stage amidst shifting power dynamics. French President Emmanuel Macron issued a stark warning today, asserting that the continent must awake to evolving threats and begin to act decisively as a unified world power. His address underscored a growing apprehension within European leadership regarding the trajectory of international relations and the continent's capacity to navigate an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape. This call to action comes at a moment when traditional alliances are being re-evaluated and new spheres of influence are rapidly emerging, forcing Europe to confront its strategic vulnerabilities and the imperative of cultivating greater autonomy. The essence of his message was clear. A passive Europe risks becoming a mere spectator in a world defined by assertive global players. Turning our attention to North America, former President Trump has issued a potent threat regarding the ceremonial opening of the new U.S.-Canada Ambassador Bridge. He stated that he would block its inauguration unless Canada acquiesces to specific trade demands related to automotive tariffs. This declaration follows what was characterized as a positive phone call between Mr. Trump and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, suggesting that despite diplomatic exchanges, significant points of contention persist. The bridge, a crucial artery for cross-border commerce, represents over $6 billion in economic activity annually. Its delayed opening would inevitably inflict substantial financial repercussions on both nations, particularly impacting supply chains and manufacturing sectors dependent on smooth bilateral trade. In a separate development, Kenya is preparing to formally confront Russia over what it deems an unacceptable pattern of using Kenyan nationals in combat operations. Nairobi has voiced strong objections to reports of its citizens being recruited and deployed in conflict zones, often under dubious circumstances. The Kenyan government emphasized its commitment to protecting its citizens and stated it has already moved to shut down several illegal recruitment networks operating within its borders. Furthermore, Nairobi intends to urge Moscow to sign a bilateral agreement explicitly banning the conscription or recruitment of Kenyan nationals into any foreign military or paramilitary forces, aiming to establish clear diplomatic safeguards against future incidents. Meanwhile, in southern Africa, a legislative bid has been initiated to extend the term of Zimbabwe's president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, beyond its scheduled conclusion in 2028. Supporters of the president have introduced a bill that would amend the constitution, potentially allowing him to remain in office for an additional period. This move has immediately drawn criticism from opposition parties and civil society groups who argue it undermines democratic principles and consolidates executive power. The debate is expected to intensify within the Zimbabwean parliament, raising concerns about the nation's adherence to constitutional limits and the potential for political instability if the measure progresses. Shifting to South America, reports from Venezuela indicate that opposition politician Juan Pablo Guanipa has been placed under house arrest following what his son described as a re-kidnapping by security forces. Mr. Guanipa, along with several other political prisoners, had been unexpectedly freed just hours prior to his recapture on Sunday. This incident casts a further shadow on the already volatile political climate in Venezuela, highlighting the ongoing struggle between the government and its critics. The international community is closely monitoring the situation, with human rights organizations expressing deep concern over the arbitrary detention of political figures and the broader erosion of civil liberties within the country. The Philippines has seen a landmark legal decision as its top court ruled that same-sex couples possess the right to co-own property. This ruling marks a significant advancement for LGBTQ+ rights within the predominantly Catholic nation. The court declared that legitimate intimate relationships must not be rendered legally invisible, acknowledging the validity of such partnerships in civil law. While the decision does not legalize same-sex marriage, it establishes a crucial precedent for recognizing the financial and legal rights of same-sex partners, potentially paving the way for further legislative reforms and greater societal acceptance in the future. This ruling offers a tangible improvement in the legal standing of thousands of Filipino couples. Finally, energy giant BP announced today that it is intensifying its cost-cutting measures as its profits continue to slide. The company also confirmed the suspension of its share buyback program, a move that precedes the arrival of its new chief executive. This strategic pivot reflects the challenging market conditions seeing the oil and gas sector, particularly the fluctuating global demand and the increasing pressure for energy transition. The comprehensive cost review and the halt in buybacks are designed to bolster BP's financial resilience and prepare the company for a more sustainable operational footprint in the long term, impacting thousands of employees globally. Our deep analysis today focuses on French President Emmanuel Macron's forceful assertion that Europe must shed its complacency and embrace a more active, unified role as a global power. The BBC report details Macron's warning of intensifying threats from China, Russia, and even the US, painting a picture of a continent facing a critical wake-up call. This isn't merely a rhetorical flourish, it represents a fundamental reevaluation of Europe's post-World War II strategic posture. The strategic so what here is multifaceted and carries profound implications for global stability and economic architecture. Economically, Macron's call for greater European autonomy inherently suggests a move towards reduced reliance on external powers, most notably the United States, for critical supply chains and technological development. This could manifest in accelerated investment in indigenous European industries, particularly in high-tech sectors, defense manufacturing, and energy infrastructure. The push for strategic sovereignty could lead to a significant reallocation of European Union funds towards pan-European projects, potentially establishing new trade relationships and tariff structures that prioritize internal European markets and capabilities. Such a shift could challenge established global trade norms and create friction with traditional partners, especially if it leads to protectionist measures aimed at fostering European champions. Consider the potential impact on transatlantic trade agreements and the flow of goods and services between the EU and the US, where a more self-reliant Europe might seek to diversify its economic partnerships, possibly looking towards emerging markets in Africa or Asia with renewed vigor. In terms of power shifts, Macron's vision signals a desire for Europe to become an independent pole in a multipolar world. This move could fundamentally alter the balance of power within NATO, where Europe currently relies heavily on US military capabilities. A Europe that acts as a true world power would necessitate increased defense spending, greater interoperability among European militaries, and potentially the development of a more robust, independent European defense architecture. This isn't to say a complete break from NATO is imminent, but rather a rebalancing where Europe carries more of its own weight, influencing global security decisions more directly. The long-term strategic consequences could involve Europe playing a more assertive role in conflict resolution in its immediate neighborhood, such as the Balkans or North Africa, and projecting its influence further afield through diplomatic and economic means. It also implies a more unified European foreign policy, moving beyond the current patchwork of national interests, which has often hindered decisive action on critical global issues. This newfound unity, if achieved, would present a formidable diplomatic bloc, capable of negotiating on equal terms with other global giants like China and the United States, potentially reshaping international institutions and governance structures. The challenge, however, lies in overcoming deep-seated national interests and varying strategic priorities among the 27 EU member states, a hurdle that has historically proven difficult to clear. In summary, today's geopolitical landscape was marked by President Macron's assertive call for Europe to embrace its identity as a global power, highlighting growing international complexities. Simultaneously, developments in North America, Africa, and South America underscored ongoing challenges in trade, human rights, and political stability, alongside significant social progress in the Philippines. For our watch list tomorrow, keep an eye on developments surrounding the U.S.-Canada Ambassador Bridge. Specifically, any further statements from either the U.S. or Canadian governments that could indicate a hardening of stances on the trade demands. Additionally, monitor the legislative progress of the bill to extend President Mnangagwa's term in Zimbabwe, watching for any parliamentary votes or significant public demonstrations that could signal escalating political tensions.